Do you know what is one of the biggest issues of being a human being? We are very limited creatures. And because we are very limited creatures, we have limited patterns of thinking and we also have a very limited logic. And because of that, we often try to project that logic, that pattern of thinking at God. And we totally forget that for Him nothing is impossible. God is an expert in turning the unlikely things into likely things. He's an expert in transforming the impossible into possible. He can bless you where you least imagine it. He can transform lives where people least imagine it. He can do what people think is not possible because he's God, because he he reigns above everything and he has everything under his command. For him everything is possible. And God, he showcased that throughout history in many lives. But I want to speak about three men of God whose stories are registered in the Bible, where God, he manifested his grace, his favor in those lives, and he made the impossible possible. He blessed them where they least imagined to be blessed. And the first man of God that I want to speak about is Joseph. Joseph, he was a guy who had many brothers. He was the son of a man named Jacob, and he was the youngest. So because he was the youngest, well, he was one of the youngest. He had an even younger sibling after him, which was Benjamin, but he was one of the youngest. And his father had a very special consideration towards him because, well, he was one of the youngest, and well, his father had a very special consideration for Joseph. Nevertheless, his brothers did not like that. His older brothers did not like that. And Joseph, he was very innocent. He did not saw any bad intentions in his brothers. But his brothers, they took them and they sold them to Egypt as a slave. And he went through a lot of hardship. He went to prison unfairly, unjustly. He went to prison. And in that prison, he gave the interpretation of a dream of two people, and that interpretation, well, it became true because, well, he had the Holy Spirit in his life. So this means that through the Holy Spirit, he could discern what was the meaning of the dreams of those two people that were in jail. And in fact, what they have dreamed, what Joseph told them, turned into reality. And what happened later, the Pharaoh also had two dreams, and those dreams took his peace of mind, and he was looking for the meaning of those dreams. One of those two people went to the Pharaoh and said, "Hey, there was one guy in jail. He gave me the answer of one of my dreams, and it really turned to reality. You should speak to him." So Joseph was called to this Pharaoh, and he gave him, with the help of the Holy Spirit, he gave him the meaning of those dreams. And what happened? I want to read to you what happened. Genesis chapter 41, verse 38 to verse 40. And Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can we find such a one as this, a man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Insomuch as God has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall be ruled according to your word. Only in regard to the throne will I be greater than you." Joseph woke up as a slave and he went to bed as a king. From a human perspective, this makes absolutely no sense. But God, He took that situation where apparently there was no way out, where apparently many people would say, okay, this guy was born as a slave, he will die as a slave. God said, no way that this is gonna happen. I will change that. And He changed the life of Joseph. He turned him into a king. He made the impossible possible. This is only one example. I'm not saying that God will turn everybody into a king. Please don't take me out of context. But I just want to tell you something. Even though people may look at you and think, okay, the situation that you are in, there's no solution, there's no way out of it. Don't listen to that. Don't listen to that. For God, there's always a way. For God, there's always a solution. And He can bless you. He can change things for better where you least imagine it. I'm sure that Joseph did not imagine to wake up as a slave and go to bed as a king. He did not imagine that, but God did it anyway. The next person I want to speak about is David. David, he was a shepherd, and he was a person that probably was not that tall. He was very short, and people looked at him and they basically ignored him. They basically gave him no attention at all because nobody took him serious. Nevertheless, God is not a God that looks at the physical appearance of somebody. God does not care about that. God, He only cares about the heart. And with physical appearance, I mean, short, tall, obese, slim. God does not look at those things. He looks at character. He looks at the heart. And David, he had a good heart. And the Bible even called him, God even called him as the man that has a heart like the one of God. So yes, he was a very good person when how can I say, he was a very good person when observed by the eyes of God. So yes, so God cares about character. And there was a man named Goliath. He was very tall and everybody was scared of him because everybody who went into a fight with him lost and died. However, David, he was very courageous, and he had the bravery of God in him, and he fought against that giant. I want to read from the first book of Samuel, chapter 17, verse 42. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy, and good-looking. This is what I told you. Many people looked at him and didn't take him serious because of his appearance. However, what happened? God also made the impossible possible in his life. David fought against that giant, against Goliath, and defeated him. And he later beheaded Goliath, and afterwards, all the Philistines became scared, and David became king at a later stage. He earned the respect and he later became king. Something very unlikely, but God turned it into likely. He's an expert in doing that. So I want to tell you, even though people maybe look at you, they make fun out of you, maybe because of your appearance, because of your hair, or because of your physical stature, don't listen to that. God does not depend on that. He doesn't rely on that. God only wants a good heart. God only wants character. If you have character, if you love God, if you truly care about Him, about His kingdom, He will honor you. The third man that I want to speak about is Job. He was a person that went through a very intense trial. He was very rich. He was very prosperous. Nevertheless, God permitted that he went through a trial. Job lost everything that he had. He was rich, but he suddenly became poor. His children, deceased, and he went through a lot of hardship. He went through a lot of hardship, and people even came to him and said, well, Job, you probably sinned against God. This is why you're going through all of that. Even though God was only testing him, God was only putting him to a trial to see what was in his heart. And you know what God did when the trial of Job ended? Job chapter 42 verse 12. Now the Lord blessed the latter days of Job more than his beginning, for he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 yoke of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. God blessed Job even more after the trial has ended. So Job was more prosperous when compared to the beginning of the trial. So imagine a man that lost everything, that was rich, suddenly lost everything. And from one day to another, he has more than he had in the beginning, something that does not make any sense from a human perspective, that does not seem logical. But as I said, God doesn't depend on logic. He doesn't depend on human opinions, on human perspectives. For him, everything is possible. For him, the unlikely can turn into likely. Not into likely, into absolutely likely, into absolutely sure. So God never fails. God never fails. And well, this is indeed very good news for each one of us. So I want to tell you, God never fails. He will not fail in your life. He has not failed in all those lives that I just read about, that I just spoke with you about it. God has not failed in their life. He will not fail in yours. God can bless you where you least imagine it. Can be today, can be tomorrow, can be in a week, can be in a year. Well, God's time is different than our time, but He can. He's able. He's able. This is the only thing that you need to know. God is able. And when He's able, He can do. So just focus on the goodness of God. Just focus on Him. Trust Him. Put all your trust in Him and know that He is able. He is able. And I'm sure that He will do the best in your life as well. So God bless you. And if you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Leave your like here in this video. Put your thumbs up, because this will indicate to YouTube that this video is good, that this message is good, and that it can be recommended to others. So if you want others to be blessed as well, please leave your thumbs up here. And yes, I see you in the next video. Take care, and God bless you and your family.